All right, hello and welcome. So today a new dev blog dropped, the last of the dev blogs before 0.7.9 drops, and this one is on tier 6 and tier 7 affixes, which are now going to be known, at least as far as the item that has them, as exalted items. So this is pretty exciting. There's a lot of implications to this particular system, and this dev blog covers them in pretty good detail. So let's go ahead and dive into what this means for us as players going into 0.7.9. So the devs outlined what their purposes were for this system. The first thing is they believe it's currently too easy to craft near perfect items. To get 4 tier 5s or close to 4 tier 5s of good gear using the Gambler plus crafting wasn't necessarily easy. In fact, it was pretty challenging, but really good players could definitely do it. It didn't take them all that long once they got enough gold. So this system gives them something to work with that's more of a gear chase. You don't have the ability to just craft up tier 6, tier 7s because tier 6 and tier 7s only show up on drops. You can't craft them yourself. You can only craft a tier 5. And so this gives an additional level of power that is beyond the crafting system, and it's also beyond the gambler because they cannot be gambled for. So a lot more opportunities for us as players to work our gear up even further, even if we're one of those players who has been able to put in the time and effort to get a bunch of tier 20 total, 4 tier 5 items. The other big thing that this does is it allows the devs to have more control over the power of uniques. They felt that currently they were kind of in a bind. Either a unique was far too powerful and you would only ever use that over any crafted items, or it was far too weak and you would replace it very early. With the new tier 6, tier 7s, it allows them to make a unique that is powerful and you might use for quite a long time, but there's always a potential that a tier 6 or tier 7 will drop that is more powerful than that unique, and so late game you still have a potential reason to replace that item. And so that's a pretty cool feature. Now we have the opportunity, at least dev side, to increase the power of uniques while still allowing the craftables, or I should say the fixed type items, to be relevant even late game. All right, so let's actually cover what exactly are exalted items, because it can be kind of confusing, because really all it is a magic or rare item with at least one tier 6 or tier 7. So if you get a tier 6 or a tier 7 on the item, it will be considered exalted, and that causes the item to be purple. It's both purple in your inventory when you hover over it. It's also purple on the ground, so it'll be easily identifiable to players. If you get an exalted item on the ground, it's going to stand out from yellows and blues, so even without loot filter right now, it still means we can easily see these items and look at them and figure out whether or not they're worth our time. The tier 6 and tier 7 item is also uncraftable. That means that if you get a tier 6, you can't make it a tier 7 on your own. And also if you have a tier 5 anywhere, you can never make it a tier 6. So you can only see these on the ground, tier 6 or tier 7. If you get a tier 6, that's all it's ever going to be. It's never going to be a tier 7. These items are also not designed to be like an expectation for players' builds. You're not going to run around with 4 tier 7s on all of your gear. That's going to be incredibly unlikely, especially given that you have to get the right kind of tier 7s, and tier 7s alone are going to be very rare. They're just supposed to be sort of a chase item, and you might get lucky and have a few of these that are really good and have a couple of, maybe 2, 3, 4 of these exalted items with a really good affix on it, but it's not going to be like trying to get 4 tier 5s. That's just not the goal of this system. It's a chase thing to try to give you something beyond your tier 5s to shoot for. All right, so let's cover some of the implications of the system, because there's actually quite a few, and some may not be so obvious. So first off, tier 5 items are going to be undergoing a slight nerf to their top end. This is not really a big deal. It's actually a pretty small nerf, really. And the tier 6, tier 7s, of course, will go above and beyond what the tier 5s can do. Even the tier 6s have a higher range. They can go higher than the current tier 5s can. So this is overall a power increase on our tiers. But do note that tier 5s are going to be slightly less powerful than they are currently. Also, while tier 6 and tier 7's affixes cannot be crafted, they can be altered with runes. So like the rune of removal or rune of cleansing, these will still work on it. And so you can remove that affix. This wasn't clear in the developer blog. I actually had to confirm that with the devs in Discord, and they did confirm that yes, those runes will work on it. So don't go in, get a tier 7 and see that you have some affixes you don't like and be like, I'm just gonna, you know, rune of removal my way through that, because you'll probably get rid of the tier 7. So yeah, just bear that in mind. Another implication of this system is, because the devs are using it to give themselves more control over uniques, it suggests that there's going to be some balance changes to uniques in the near future. So we're probably going to see, maybe even in 0.7.9, of course it's not confirmed, but if that's one of the goals of the system, you'd expect that with that is going to come some changes to uniques. Also, it's changing how some of the drop rates work. So for example, tier 6s and tier 7s need to drop at a particular time. Those times are going to be level 55 for tier 6s and all the way up to level 90 for tier 7s. But tier 5s used to drop at level 81. So, well, if tier 6s are dropping at 55, you can't have tier 5s dropping at level 81. Now tier 5s drop all the way down to level 32. So this could have huge implications for story content. And how challenging that'll be if we're going to see tier 5 show up a lot earlier in the story than we had previously. So we'll have to keep an eye on that when 0.7.9 drops. The last thing to talk about, I did mention this earlier, but just to make it clear, Exalted items cannot be bought or gambled for. They only come from drops, and I think this is a good thing because it decreases the need to use the gambler, which was far too high in 0.7.8. Everyone was just farming their gold from the arena or from the monolith, and they were going and using the gambler to get their gear. Drops on the ground were becoming almost irrelevant. This makes drops relevant again, even without loot filter. They'll be even more relevant with loot filter, but even without that now, when purples drop, we will be paying attention because it's the only way to get purples. So let the purple chase begin. All right, that'll do it for me here. I will have a patch note update when that comes out for sure. We expect the patch sometime this week. Devs have told us sometime this week, so there's a good reason to expect it. So yeah, I will see you all again real soon. Hope you enjoy the information on the new tier 6 and tier 7 affixes, and enjoy your time in Last Epoch.